Captain Jack Miller leaned against the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Cornucopia, watching the stars blur as they approached the Galactic Council's station. Earth had only joined the interstellar community 5 years ago, and already they were facing a crisis that threatened to send them back to isolation. "Captain, the Council representatives are demanding our solution now," First Officer Lisa Reed said, her voice tight with concern. "The food shortage on Proxima Station has reached critical levels." Jack nodded grimly. The massive algae farms that fed most of the galaxy's stations have been devastated by a mysterious blight. Billions faced starvation across 17 systems. Is Dr. Thomas ready with the presentation? "Yes, sir. But the Council is skeptical. They believe our technology is too primitive to solve a galactic-scale problem." Jack smiled thinly. "They haven't met many humans, have they?" When they docked, the Council chamber buzzed with the representatives of 32 species. The Araxian delegate, Ambassador Krell, towered over Jack with his 4 long arms folded across his carapace. "Human, we granted your species membership out of courtesy. If you've wasted our time during this crisis—" "Ambassador," Jack interrupted, "Dr. Thomas isn't proposing a solution. He's already implemented one." The chamber fell silent as Dr. Ben Thomas, a soil scientist from Nebraska, stepped forward. His weathered hands manipulated the holographic controls with practiced ease, displaying images of vast underground chambers. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," he began, "humans have faced food shortages throughout our history. We've learned to grow food in any environment. What we're proposing is vertical hydroponics on a scale your engineers never considered viable." The Mentary representative, with her glowing blue skin, scoffed. "We've analyzed hydroponics. The energy requirements are prohibitive." That was true, Thomas agreed, until my team developed a symbiotic fungal system that reduces energy consumption by 87% while increasing yield 5-fold. The chamber erupted in disbelief, but Thomas merely tapped his console. The screens filled with data from the pilot facility on Mars, where towers of greenery produced enough food to support 1 million beings. "We've been refining this for generations on Earth," Jack added. "Our planet forced us to innovate or starve. Now we're offering to build these facilities on every affected station within 6 months." Ambassador Krell's compound eyes narrowed. "And what does Earth want in return?" Jack smiled. "Partnership. We're new here. We have much to learn from you all. In exchange, we offer what humans have always brought to the table: adaptation, innovation, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat." The Council deliberated for less than an hour before unanimously approving the plan. As they left the chamber, Lisa whispered, "They didn't expect that from the newcomers, did they?" Jack shook his head. "No one ever does. That's our secret weapon." Within a month, human engineers and botanists were scattered across the galaxy, teaching alien species how to grow tomatoes, wheat, and potatoes in impossibly efficient vertical farms. The food crisis that had threatened to destabilize the Galactic Council became instead the foundation of humanity's reputation among the stars. 6 months after the implementation of the human hydroponics systems, Jack received an urgent summons to return to Galactic Central. The message contained no details, just a priority code that made his stomach sink. "What do you think it's about?" Lisa asked as their ship entered final approach. "I don't know," Jack admitted, "but the success metrics have been off the charts. Food production is up 300% across all installations." Their reception at the docking bay gave them their first clue. Armed Araxian security forces escorted them not to the council chamber, but to a quarantine facility. Inside, Ambassador Krell waited with Dr. Vorn, the council's chief cynobiologist. The chamber's walls displayed microscopic images of cellular structures Jack didn't recognize. "Captain Miller," Krell began, his voice unusually subdued, "we have a situation." Dr. Vorn gestured to the screens. "The symbiotic fungal system your Dr. Thomas introduced. It's evolving." Jack frowned. "That's impossible. The system was genetically locked." For human genetic structures, yes, Vorn replied. But when exposed to non-terrestrial biology, the fungus adapts in ways your scientists never predicted. On 17 worlds, it has formed new symbiotic relationships with native species. Lisa stepped forward. Is it harmful? That's the problem, Krell said. It's not harmful. It's too beneficial. On Mentari worlds, it's increased soil fertility by 500%. On Araxian colonies, it's eliminating parasitic infections that have plagued us for centuries. Jack blinked in confusion. Then what's the emergency? Vorn's expression darkened. The Taldor Empire. They control 60% of pharmaceutical production in the galaxy. Your fungus renders most of their products obsolete. They're demanding the Council classify your innovation as a biological weapon and quarantine all human territories. That's absurd, Jack protested. We're saving lives. And destroying a trillion-credit industry, Krell countered. The Taldor have threatened military action. There's more, Vorn added quietly. Some religious factions are claiming the fungus carries human consciousness, that it's a form of colonization. Protests have erupted on conservative worlds. Jack paced the room, mind racing. This was supposed to be simple. Feed people, build trust. Nothing involving humans has ever been simple, Krell observed. Your species brings change wherever you go. Some fear change. Lisa had been reviewing the data silently. Now she looked up. These adaptations, they're not random, are they? The fungus is responding intelligently to each environment. Vorn nodded slowly. It appears to have a form of swarm intelligence. Nothing like this exists anywhere else in the galaxy. Jack sat heavily in a chair designed for a species with very different anatomy. So we solved one crisis and created another. Welcome to galactic politics, Krell said, not unkindly. The question now is, what will humans do next? The private conference room on Galactic Central's diplomatic level wasn't designed for the tense negotiations now taking place within it. Jack and Lisa represented Earth, while Ambassador Krell had surprisingly positioned himself as mediator between them and the Taldor delegation. The Taldor representative, Director Mox, was a small, gray-skinned being with enormous black eyes that never seemed to blink. His translator device gave his voice a metallic edge that made his threats sound even colder. Your fungal system has already cost us 30 billion credits, Mox stated. The Taldor Directorate demands immediate cessation of all hydroponics projects and reparations. Jack leaned forward. People were starving. We helped them. By destabilizing the galactic economy that has maintained peace for 3 centuries, Mox countered. The standoff might have continued indefinitely, if not for the unexpected arrival of Ren, the representative of the reclusive Vash collective. The insectoid species rarely participated in council affairs, preferring isolation on their distant worlds. The collective has been observing, Ren announced, her mandibles clicking as the translator converted her pheromonal speech. We have conducted independent analysis of the human fungal system. Everyone fell silent. The Vash were acknowledged as the galaxy's premier biologists, though they seldom shared their knowledge. The human innovation is not a weapon, Ren continued. It is a missing piece. She activated a holographic display showing the fungal network spreading through different ecosystems. For millions of years, galactic ecosystems have been incomplete. Your Earth evolved in isolation, developing symbiotic relationships that never emerged elsewhere. Krell's compound eyes widened. You're saying this fungus is beneficial to the galaxy itself? Precisely, Ren confirmed. Our studies show it's restoring balance to damaged worlds. The collective has recreated the Taldor pharmaceutical compounds by working with the fungus, not against it. The results are superior medicines at a fraction of the cost. Mox sputtered in outrage, but Ren continued implacably. The Vash collective proposes a new arrangement. We will partner with humans to ensure safe implementation of this technology. The Taldor will be compensated with exclusive rights to the new pharmaceutical techniques. Lisa exchanged a startled glance with Jack. You're offering us protection. We're offering partnership, Ren corrected. Humans bring chaos. Creative, necessary chaos. The Vash bring balance. Together, we can guide this transformation. After 3 days of negotiations, an agreement emerged. The hydroponics projects would continue under joint human-Vash supervision. The Taldor would transition to new production methods with financial support from the Council. As they prepared to depart, Krell approached Jack privately. You've made powerful friends and enemies in a very short time. Jack smiled wearily. We seem to have a talent for it. The Vash never ally themselves with anyone, Krell observed. They see something in humans that the rest of us missed. What's that? Krell's alien features formed what might have been a smile. I believe they see a reflection of what they once were before they achieved balance. They see potential. As their ship broke orbit, Jack watched the glittering expanse of Galactic Central recede. I never expected the Vash to step in, he admitted to Lisa. No one expects humans either, she replied. Maybe that's why they like us. 5 years after the introduction of the hydroponics system, Jack stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Embassy on Galactic Central. The massive structure incorporated living plants throughout its design, a physical manifestation of humanity's contribution to the galaxy. Quite a view, remarked Governor Tom Wilson, who had traveled from Earth for the dedication ceremony. Hard to believe that 5 years ago, most species had never heard of humans. Jack nodded. Now they can't stop talking about us. The human-Vash partnership had transformed more than just food production. The fungal system had been refined and specialized for hundreds of environments, healing damaged ecosystems across the galaxy. The Taldor, after initial resistance, had become enthusiastic converts once they realized the profit potential of the new biotechnologies. The council session begins in an hour, Lisa reminded them, now wearing the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. They're voting on the expansion initiative today. The initiative was humanity's most ambitious proposal yet, a program to reclaim worlds previously considered uninhabitable, using enhanced versions of the hydroponics system. Any opposition expected? Wilson asked. The usual conservative voices, Lisa replied. But since the Vash are co-sponsoring, approval is likely. Jack's communication device chimed. Captain Miller, your presence is requested in Docking Bay 17. Priority Alpha. Jack frowned. That's odd. Excuse me. When he arrived at the bay, he found Dr. Ben Thomas waiting beside a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design. Ben, what are you doing here? I thought you were on New Mars. Thomas smiled mysteriously. I received an invitation. We both did. Come aboard. The ship's interior defied human architectural norms, with curved surfaces that seemed almost organic. At its center stood Ren of the Vash Collective, surrounded by a delegation of her species. Captain Miller, Ren greeted him. We have something to show you before the council session. The ship departed without requesting clearance, a privilege Jack had never witnessed. They traveled for just 20 minutes before approaching a massive structure in orbit around Galactic Central's sun. A sphere the size of a small moon, with a surface that seemed to ripple like water. What is this? Jack asked, awestruck. The seed ship, Ren answered. For 50,000 years, the Vash have preserved the genetic material of extinct species from across the galaxy. We've been waiting for the right moment, and the right partners, to restore them. Thomas couldn't contain his excitement. They want to combine our hydroponics technology with their genetic archives. Jack, we could bring back thousands of lost ecosystems. Ren's mandibles clicked softly. Humans dream of exploring the galaxy, but many worlds remain dead or hostile. Together, we can change that. The seed ship will travel to these worlds, deploying combined human-Vash technology to make them habitable. Jack understood the political implications immediately. You're announcing this at today's session. Yes, Ren confirmed. The Vash have remained apart for too long. Humans have reminded us of a truth we had forgotten. that life is meant to adapt and spread. When the council convened hours later, the announcement of the seedship project overshadowed even the expansion initiative. Species that had viewed human innovation with suspicion now sought its potential when paired with Vash wisdom. Governor Wilson leaned toward Jack during the thunderous applause that followed the presentation. "Did you know about this?" Jack shook his head, still processing the magnitude of what was happening. "I think we've stumbled into something much bigger than feeding hungry people." Wilson smiled. "Isn't that always humanity's way? We solve one problem and end up changing everything around us." As the session concluded, Ambassador Krell approached with representatives from a dozen worlds. "It seems, Captain Miller, that humanity's arrival was more significant than any of us realized. Perhaps you were not latecomers to the galactic community after all." "What do you mean?" Jack asked. Krell gestured to the diverse delegation around him. "Perhaps you were the missing ingredient all along." 20 years had passed since Earth joined the galactic community. Jack Miller, now Admiral of Earth's diplomatic fleet, stood before the viewport in his quarters aboard the flagship Unity, watching the swirling blue-green atmosphere of a once-dead world come to life below. A soft chime announced a visitor, his old friend Lisa Reed, now Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. "They're ready for you in the shuttle bay," she said. "The ceremony won't start without you." Jack nodded, adjusting the formal uniform that never felt comfortable despite 2 decades of wear. "Hard to believe this is the 30th world we've revitalized." "With hundreds more in progress," Lisa added. "The seedship program has expanded beyond even the Vash's expectations." The shuttle ride to the surface was brief, descending through clouds created by atmospheric processors that hadn't existed before human engineers collaborated with Vash biologists. They landed in a vast plain covered with knee-high grasses, a landscape that had been barren rock just 3 years earlier. The ceremony site bustled with activity. Representatives from 47 species had gathered to witness the official declaration of the planet's habitability. At the center stood a monument of living crystal, a Vash artwork that incorporated the fungal system that had started everything. As Jack made his way through the crowd, he was stopped repeatedly by delegates offering congratulations and thanks. The Human-Vash partnership had become the foundation of a new era of galactic cooperation. Ren, now the leader of the Vash Collective, waited beside the monument. Though insectoid physiognomy was difficult for humans to read, Jack had learned to recognize contentment in the gentle sway of her antennae. "Admiral Miller," she greeted him. "Once again, we mark a beginning." "Thanks to you," Jack replied. "The Vash made all this possible." "No," Ren corrected. "We had the knowledge but lacked the catalyst. For millennia, the Vash preserved life, but feared to interfere with its course. Humans taught us that sometimes life requires a helping hand to flourish." The ceremony itself was brief but profound. Representatives from each participating species added a sample of their world's soil to the base of the monument, symbolizing the united effort that had transformed the planet. As twilight fell across the new grasslands, Jack found himself walking with Ben Thomas, now elderly but still actively developing new applications for his original innovation. "Did you ever imagine it would lead to this?" Jack asked, gesturing at the thriving ecosystem around them. Thomas chuckled. "I was just trying to grow better tomatoes in my greenhouse in Nebraska. But that's always been humanity's story, hasn't it? We solve the problem in front of us, and it leads to places we never expected." Later, during the reception, Ambassador Krell sought Jack out. The Araxian had become one of humanity's strongest advocates in the Council over the years. "I've been authorized to share some news with you," Krell said quietly. "The Council has approved the establishment of the Galactic Restoration Corps. It will be headquartered on Earth, with joint leadership from all participating species." Jack raised an eyebrow. "That's unprecedented." "As is much that has happened since humans joined us," Krell replied. "The Corps will expand the seedship program to thousands of worlds. The Council believes this may be the most important initiative in our history." "Why tell me first?" Krell's compound eyes reflected the setting sun. Because they wish to name it after you. The Miller Initiative. Jack shook his head firmly. No, if it's to be named after anyone, it should be Thomas. He created the system that made it all possible. Actually, came Wren's voice as she joined them. The Vash have a better proposal. In our archives, we found an ancient Earth term that seems appropriate. We would call it Genesis. As night fell on the newly living world, Jack stood among representatives of species that had existed for millions of years before humanity first looked up at the stars. Yet somehow, humans had become central to their shared future. The human legacy. Lisa mused, joining him as he watched the first stars appear in the new sky. Not conquest or domination, but restoration. Jack smiled. We've always been better at fixing things than we give ourselves credit for. Above them, the first moon rose over a world reborn through cooperation that crossed the boundaries of biology, culture, and space itself. A testament to what becomes possible when innovation meets wisdom. 50 years after Earth joined the galactic community, Admiral Jack Miller's grandson, Dr. Mark Miller, stood in the center of the Genesis Project's main control hub on Earth. At 70, he had dedicated his life to expanding his grandfather's legacy, developing new applications for the technology that had transformed the galaxy. Status update on Sector 12, he requested, addressing the integrated AI system that coordinated the now vast network of restoration projects. 12 worlds in final terraforming stages, the AI responded. Estimated completion, 8 months ahead of schedule. Mark nodded with satisfaction. The Genesis project now encompassed over 3,000 worlds in various stages of restoration, with new techniques being developed constantly through the combined efforts of hundreds of species. His assistant, Kel, a young Araxian whose grandfather had served with Jack, approached with an urgent message. Doctor, we've received a transmission from the border of the Void Zone. Well, you should see for yourself. The Void Zone, a vast region of space believed to have been sterilized by an ancient weapon of mass destruction millennia ago. Even the Vash records contained little information about what had happened there, only that it had once teemed with life before being reduced to a wasteland of dead worlds and toxic radiation. The transmission showed grainy footage from a Genesis scout vessel. At first, Mark couldn't understand what he was seeing. Just swirling patterns in space that seemed to move with purpose. Then the camera zoomed in, revealing that the patterns were formed by countless tiny organisms floating in the void between dead worlds. They're alive, he whispered in astonishment. How is that possible? Nothing has lived in the Void Zone for at least 50,000 years. Analysis suggests they're consuming the radiation, Kel explained. The scout ship detected trace elements of our fungal system in their cellular structure. Mark's mind raced. You're saying our restoration technology has somehow spread to the Void Zone? That's impossible. We've never deployed there. The Vash representatives are already on their way from the collective homeworld, Kel added. They've declared this a Priority 1 discovery. Within days, the observation lounge of Genesis Command was filled with the most diverse gathering of scientific minds in the project's history. The Vash delegation was led by Sora, Wren's daughter, and the new leader of their collective. Unlike her mother, she had extensively modified herself to better communicate with other species, incorporating translation organs directly into her body. What we are witnessing is unprecedented, Sora announced, her voice resonating clearly without technological assistance. The fungal system you humans introduced has continued to evolve beyond our projections. Holographic displays showed the latest data from the Void Zone. The space-dwelling organisms were multiplying, creating vast colonies that absorbed radiation and transformed it into elements essential for life. They're healing the void, Mark realized, just as the original system healed soil. More than that, added Dr. Lin, the elderly Mentari xenobiologist who had been skeptical of human technology decades earlier. They appear to be deliberately seeding the dead worlds with basic organic compounds, the building blocks of life. A murmur ran through the assembled scientists. "Are you suggesting these organisms are intelligent?" Mark asked. "Not individually," Sora clarified, "but collectively, they appear to be following the original programming of the fungal system, to restore environments capable of supporting life. They've simply adapted to do so on a cosmic scale." Director Mox of the Taldor, now ancient even by his species standards, leaned heavily on an assistive device. The former opponents of human innovation had become some of its strongest supporters after the economic boom that followed the Genesis project. "This was never part of the original design," Mox observed. "These organisms are innovating independently." "Like humans do," Sora added with what her species considered a smile. "Perhaps the fungus learned more from its creators than we realized." The implications were staggering. The void zone encompassed nearly a quarter of the known galaxy, thousands upon thousands of worlds that had been written off as permanently dead. If these organisms continued their work, they might eventually restore all of it. "We need to support this process," Mark decided. "Augment it, guide it." For the next year, a joint task force studied the phenomenon, eventually developing specialized vessels that could deploy enhanced versions of the space-dwelling organisms. The first test deployment created a cascade effect, accelerating the healing process exponentially. On the 5th anniversary of the discovery, Mark stood with Sora on the observation deck of a research station at the edge of what had once been the void zone. Before them, sensors showed the first confirmed plant life on a world that had been dead for 50 millennia. Simple moss, but undeniably alive. "Your grandfather would be proud," Sora said quietly. "When humans joined the galactic community, no one could have imagined this outcome." Mark watched the readings in wonder. "We just wanted to help, to contribute something." "And in doing so," Sora replied, "you've taught the rest of us a lesson we had forgotten. That life finds a way, especially when given a chance." As they observed the first green shoots taking hold on a world long thought beyond redemption, neither could have predicted the even more remarkable discovery that waited just beyond the horizon of their knowledge. 100 years had passed since Earth first joined the galactic community. The ceremony taking place on the restored world of Nexus Prime drew representatives from over 500 species, many of whom had once been bitter rivals before the Genesis project united them in common purpose. Ambassador Julia Miller, great-granddaughter of Jack, stood on the speaker's platform beside the assembled leaders of the major galactic powers. At 35, she represented not just Earth but the entire Genesis Directorate, the organization that had grown from the original partnership between humans and the Vash. The occasion was momentous, the official announcement of the discovery that had shaken the scientific community to its core. "Distinguished representatives," Julia began, her voice carrying across the vast amphitheater. "1 century ago, humanity joined this community as newcomers, bringing little but a simple innovation in food production. Today, we gather to share a discovery that rewrites our understanding of galactic history." The holographic display behind her activated, showing a series of ancient stone tablets discovered on a world deep in the former void zone, a planet that had only become accessible after decades of restoration work. These artifacts, carbon-dated to over 1 million years ago, contain genetic sequences that our scientists have confirmed are directly ancestral to certain Earth species, including humans. A murmur swept through the crowd as the implications sank in. "The evidence is now conclusive," Julia continued. "Earth was not isolated by accident. It was preserved, protected by ancient technology that diverted spacefaring civilizations away from our solar system for millennia. We were not latecomers to the galactic community. We are survivors of its earliest era." The lead archaeologist, Dr. Vell of the Mentari, stepped forward to elaborate. "The tablets indicate that a catastrophic conflict, the same one that created the void zone, threatened all sentient life in the galaxy. A coalition of species, facing extinction, enacted a desperate plan. They seeded several isolated worlds with genetic material and protective technology, hoping that new civilizations might someday emerge and restore what was lost." Sora, now the eldest of the Vash collective, added her perspective. Our oldest archives hinted at this possibility, but the evidence was fragmentary. Now we understand why the human fungal system had such profound effects on galactic ecosystems. It wasn't introducing something new, but returning something ancient that had been lost. Julia resumed her address. We now believe that the intuitive compatibility between human biotechnology and galactic ecosystems wasn't coincidental. Earth preserved biological systems that had once been common throughout the galaxy before the ancient conflict. When we arrived, we weren't bringing something alien. We were returning something native. The revelation transformed humanity's place in galactic society overnight. Species that had viewed humans as upstart newcomers now recognized them as carriers of the galaxy's lost biological heritage. Later that evening, as celebrations continued across the planet, Julia found herself standing with Sora and Krell's grandson, Ambassador Trell, on a balcony overlooking the capital city. A century ago, your great-grandfather stood before the council offering a simple solution to hunger, Trell observed. Now we discover you were part of the galaxy's oldest plan for renewal. Julia looked up at the stars, no longer distant points of light, but homes and destinations, part of a vast community. The irony is that we never knew. We developed our technology in isolation, believing we were alone. Perhaps that was necessary, Sora suggested. The tablets indicate the protective isolation was intentional, to allow your species to develop without the prejudices and conflicts that led to the ancient war. And now the circle is complete, Trell added. The galaxy seeded Earth, and Earth has reseeded the galaxy. As the celebration continued below, Julia contemplated the journey that had brought humanity from isolated Earth to the center of galactic restoration. What had begun as a simple innovation to feed the hungry had revealed itself as part of a plan set in motion long before humans had even evolved. What happens now? She asked softly. Sora's compound eyes reflected the lights of the city below. The Genesis project continues, but with new understanding. There are other void zones beyond our galaxy, other wounds in the cosmos waiting to be healed, and other isolated worlds like Earth. Julia wondered. Perhaps, Trell acknowledged. The tablets mention other arcs seeded throughout nearby galaxies. The implications were staggering, that humanity's journey might be just one thread in a tapestry of renewal spreading across the universe, a plan of cosmic restoration set in motion by ancient beings who had faced extinction with hope rather than despair. As dawn broke over Nexus Prime, Julia watched the first light touch a world that had once been dead, now teeming with life reborn through cooperation across species and millennia. The human legacy had become something greater than any one species could have achieved alone. Proof that even in the face of cosmic devastation, life would find a way to return, to adapt, and to thrive. In laboratories and fields and void ships throughout the galaxy, the work continued. The restoration of worlds, the healing of ancient wounds, the building of a future where diversity was strength and cooperation was the foundation of progress. And at the heart of it all, the simple, stubborn human belief that had started everything. That no problem was unsolvable, no world beyond saving, and no future without hope.